The red alert pulsed through the pristine white corridor of Epsilon 9 facility, casting an eerie crimson glow that reflected off the polished walls. Quintar Nelvari, newly appointed containment specialist, watched the security feed with all four of her eyes blinking rapidly in sequence, a sign of anxiety in her species. Breach number 33 announced the facility's automated system in the universal standard language. Human specimen has exited containment. Nelvari's upper set of eyes narrowed, while her lower pair focused on the secondary monitor. The human, officially designated as Anomaly 34H, but informally called Morgan by the staff, moved with casual confidence through the hallways. What disturbed Nelvari most wasn't the breach itself, but the fact that not a single security measure had been triggered. The containment fields remained intact. The doors registered authorized passage, and even the neural scanners showed no sign of tampering. "How?" she whispered, mandibles clicking in frustration. "How does it keep doing this?" The human moved with purpose, heading straight for the cafeteria section. Morgan's bipedal form was unremarkable by galactic standards. 2 arms, 2 legs, a single head with only 2 eyes. Yet something about the way it moved suggested an unnerving familiarity with the facility. The specimen grabbed a tray, selected nutrient cubes designed specifically for human consumption, and even operated the microwave unit, technology that predated the Galactic Alliance and was only kept operational for the humans' benefit. When Morgan finished eating and returned the tray to the proper disposal unit, Nelvari's communication panel chimed. "Specialist Nelvari," came the stern voice of Director Iridian Carrix. "Report to my office immediately." Moments later, Nelvari stood at attention before the imposing desk of Facility Director Carrix. The Iridian's scaled skin glimmered under the office lights, and his elongated cranium pulsed slightly, with the neural activity common to his species. "You've been reassigned," Carrix said without preamble. "Effective immediately. You are now the handler for Anomaly 34H. Nelvari's lower jaw dropped slightly. "The human? But Director, I'm a containment specialist, not—" "Your previous handler has requested transfer after the last 3 breaches. You have an excellent record of adapting to unusual containment challenges." Carrix's voice remained even, but the neural pulses beneath his translucent cranium quickened. "There's something else. Specialist. This is classified. I need you to determine how the human is bypassing our security measures." "You suspect sabotage, sir?" "I suspect nothing and everything." Carrix's digits tapped a complex pattern on his desk. "The human appears to possess no technological assistance, yet exits containment at will. Your first task is to establish rapport and discover its methods." "And if it refuses to cooperate?" "Then observe, learn, adapt." Carrix's expression hardened. The human remains classified as an Epsilon-level anomaly, despite its seemingly benign behavior. That classification exists for a reason. The door to Containment Unit 34H slid open with a soft, pneumatic hiss. Nelvari stepped through, her 4 eyes scanning the chamber rapidly. The room was sparsely furnished by Alliance standards, but contained items specifically designed for human comfort. A sleep platform with cushioning, a desk with primitive interface capabilities, and several shelves holding objects of unknown purpose. The human sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, at Nelvari's entrance. Morgan's eyes opened, revealing irises of a startling blue that seemed almost luminescent against the darker sclera. "You're new," the human said in perfect universal standard, without the translator assistance most non-Alliance species required. "Let me guess. My 33rd escape finally got old Zemlik reassigned?" Nelvari's secondary eyelids flickered in surprise. "How did you know about the reassignment? Or speak your language?" Morgan stood with fluid grace. "I've been here a long time. Specialist. I observe. I learn. I adapt." The human smiled, revealing flat teeth unsuited for predation. Just like you've been ordered to do with me. I am Quintar Nelvari, your new handler, she said, recovering her professional demeanor. And you are… Morgan… Just Morgan. The human extended a hand, a gesture Nelvari recognized from the cultural briefing as a traditional human greeting. After a moment's hesitation, she reached out with her upper right arm, allowing the human to grasp her three-fingered hand. Interesting, Morgan said, releasing her hand. Your species evolved from arboreal omnivores, yet you retain a genetic structure remarkably similar to the Quantalians, who evolved from marine predators. Curious convergence. Nelvari felt her neck scales bristle. How could you possibly know my evolutionary history from a handshake? I didn't. I've studied xenobiology for longer than you might imagine. Morgan turned away, gesturing toward the sparse room. So, are you here to interrogate me about my escapes? Or is this just a courtesy introduction? Both, Nelvari admitted. How are you bypassing the containment fields? Morgan laughed, a sound surprisingly musical to Nelvari's auditory receptors. I'm not bypassing anything. The facility lets me out. That's impossible. The security protocols… Recognize me as authorized personnel. Morgan's expression became more serious. Tell me, Specialist Nelvari, have you ever wondered why this facility is called Epsilon 9? Or why the architecture differs so subtly from standard Alliance design? Before Nelvari could respond, her communication panel chimed. Specialist Nelvari and Anomaly 34H. Report to Lambda 7 testing chamber immediately. Authorization, Director Carrix. The Lambda 7 testing chamber was a stark, circular room lined with various technological artifacts recovered from abandoned outposts across the galaxy. Director Carrix stood beside a cylindrical device that pulsed with a dull blue light. Perfect timing, he said, not looking up from his diagnostic panel. We're experiencing a malfunction in the life support stabilizer. Normally, I'd call engineering, but since our human guest seems so familiar with ancient technology, he gestured toward the device. Morgan approached the cylinder without hesitation. This is a standard atmospheric regulator from the late expansion era. The problem is in the solvent cycling mechanism. The human knelt beside the device, fingers moving with practiced precision across a panel Nelvari hadn't even noticed. You've been running it on a closed system, but it's designed to interface with a larger environmental matrix. Within moments, the blue pulsing stabilized, and the device emitted a soft chime of confirmation. Impressive, Carrix said, his tone carefully neutral. Now, perhaps you could examine this. He indicated a flat, rectangular object on a nearby pedestal. Morgan approached, then stopped suddenly. This is a communication array module. Terran design, circa 2300 standard calendar. Can you activate it? Carrix asked. Morgan's hands hovered over the device. I could, but first, tell me where you found it. An abandoned outpost in the Orion Spur, Carrix replied. Why does that matter? Because this technology shouldn't be there. Morgan's eyes narrowed. The Orion Spur was never part of the expansion-era transit network. Nelvari watched as Morgan finally placed hands on the device, reconfiguring several components with the confidence of long familiarity. The array hummed to life, projecting a holographic display of what appeared to be a transit map, labeled Way 7 Orion Spur Transit Network. Interesting, Morgan murmured. This suggests human expansion reached farther than the historical records indicate. Or, Carrix said pointedly, it suggests you recognize technology you shouldn't be familiar with. Morgan's expression remained neutral. One final test? Carrix nodded toward a sealed doorway at the far end of the chamber. This was recovered from a derelict station in the Celestial Tail region. None of our specialists have been able to determine its function or access method. The doorway stood approximately 3 meters tall, constructed of a dull gray material that seemed to absorb light. No visible control mechanism was apparent. Morgan approached slowly, running fingertips along the edge of the frame. "This is a standard emergency bulkhead, third-generation design." The human pressed a specific sequence of points along the doorframe while speaking clearly. 37 Alpha 9 Delta. With a deep mechanical groan, the ancient door began to descend, revealing a passage beyond. "How?" Carrick's demanded, neural pulses visibly accelerating beneath his translucent cranium. "That access code appears nowhere in our databases." "It wouldn't," Morgan replied. "It's standard emergency protocol for human vessels. Every bulkhead responds to the same override." Carrick and Nelvari exchanged glances. "So you're claiming," Nelvari said carefully, "that you recognize these technologies because they're of human origin." "I'm not claiming anything," Morgan responded. "I'm demonstrating a fact. These aren't alien artifacts you're studying. They're human technologies, designed and built by my species." "Impossible," Carrick scoffed. "These artifacts date back tens of thousands of years. Human civilization couldn't possibly—" "How old do you think human civilization is, Director?" Morgan interrupted, voice suddenly sharp. "Or perhaps more importantly, how old do you think I am?" The laboratory section of Epsilon 9 hummed with quiet activity as Nelvari followed Director Carrick through a series of secure doors. 3 days had passed since the demonstration in Lambda 7, and Carrick had been uncharacteristically silent about the implications of Morgan's technological proficiency. "I've been analyzing the genetic samples we've collected from Morgan," Carrick explained as they entered a restricted genetic sequencing chamber. "What I've found is troubling." Holographic displays illuminated the room, showing complex strands of genetic code spinning in 3 dimensions. Carrick manipulated the display with practiced gestures. "This is Morgan's genetic structure," he said, highlighting a sequence. "And these additional displays appeared, showing different genetic codes, are samples from various sapient species, Iridian, Quantalian, Mariaxian, and others." Nelvari studied the displays. "I don't understand. What am I looking for?" "This..." Carrick isolated specific segments from each display. "These genetic markers appear in all sapient species we've studied. They regulate neural development, cognitive processing, even certain aspects of social behavior. We've always assumed they were examples of convergent evolution." "But," Nelvari prompted. "But they're identical. Not similar. Identical. Down to the molecular level." Carrick's voice dropped. "And they all appear in human DNA. More specifically, in Morgan's DNA." Nelvari felt her scales tighten against her skin. "That's not possible." "There are only 2 explanations," Carrick continued. "Either humans are the progenitors of all known sapient species, or they manipulated our genetics," Nelvari finished. "But that would mean that human civilization predates all others." Carrick's neural pulses had slowed to a deliberate rhythm. "I've been researching the facility archives. Epsilon 9 wasn't built by the Alliance. It existed already, buried beneath the surface. We've been occupying a human installation all along." Nelvari's lower jaw dropped in shock. "Does the Council know this?" "Some suspect. None have confirmed it." Carrick manipulated another display, showing architectural schematics. "Look at these embedded patterns in the structural design. They match exactly with the door Morgan activated." "So when Morgan said the facility lets them out, the original security systems recognize Morgan as authorized personnel?" Carrick nodded grimly. "We've only been accessing a fraction of this facility's capabilities. There are entire sections," he highlighted areas of the schematic, "that our sensors can't penetrate." Nelvari studied the schematics, her training and containment protocols activating. These could be potential escape routes. Or something else entirely. Carrick closed the displays with a gesture. I'm authorizing you to work directly with Morgan. Find out what else is hidden in this facility. But remember, trust is a luxury we cannot afford. As they exited the laboratory, neither noticed the shadowy figure of Tavel, a Mariaxian specialist, slipping away from the adjacent observation room, neural tendrils pulsing with agitation. Saturday. Cycle 422 began like any other day at Epsilon 9. Nelvari completed her standard security checks before heading to Containment Unit 34H. Over the past week, she'd developed a cautious working relationship with Morgan, conducting various technological examinations throughout the facility. She was approaching Morgan's quarters when the first alarm sounded. Not the familiar alert indicating a containment breach, but a facility-wide emergency signal she'd never heard before. Warning: Emergency Protocol Omega initiated. All containment fields destabilizing. This is not a drill. Nelvari broke into a run, arriving at Morgan's quarters just as the containment field shimmered and disappeared. Throughout the facility, similar fields were failing, releasing dozens of dangerous anomalies from their carefully controlled environments. "What's happening?" she demanded, as Morgan emerged calmly from the quarters. "Someone's activated the original emergency override," Morgan replied, already moving toward the main corridor. "It's designed to release all occupants in case of catastrophic facility failure. How do we stop it?" "We don't. Not from here." Morgan's pace quickened. "We need to reach the central control hub, the real one, not the repurposed command center the Alliance uses." As they rushed through the corridors, chaos erupted around them. Staff members fled in panic as containment failures cascaded throughout the facility. In the distance, Nelvari heard the distinctive roar of Draconis Vorax D-13, nicknamed Spike by the staff, a predatory entity responsible for 17 deaths before its successful containment. "Morgan, wait!" she called, as the human turned down an unfamiliar corridor. "That leads toward the anomaly wing, not away from it." "I know," Morgan replied without slowing. "We need to stabilize the situation before reaching central control." They rounded a corner and came face to face with Spike, 3 meters of armored scales, razor-sharp protrusions, and glistening fangs dripping with neurotoxin. The creature's 6 eyes fixed on them, its neural crest flaring in hunting posture. Nelvari reached for her restraint weapon, but Morgan stepped forward, empty-handed. "Stay behind me," the human instructed calmly. "Are you insane? That thing will—" To Nelvari's astonishment, Morgan approached Spike with measured steps. "Hello, old friend. Someone's disrupted your habitat again, haven't they?" The creature's aggressive posture diminished slightly. Morgan reached into a pocket and removed a small nutrient cube, standard rations, but one specifically designed for human consumption. "Hungry?" Morgan offered the cube, palm flat. Spike's neural crest flattened completely as it approached with surprising delicacy, extending a secondary feeding appendage to take the offered food. "How is this possible?" Nelvari whispered. "Spike has never responded to conditioning." "He's not conditioned. He's communicating," Morgan replied, gently stroking the creature's neural crest. "Most of your anomalies aren't mindless monsters. They're intelligent beings with different perceptual frameworks." Morgan spoke to the creature in a series of clicks and subvocal rumbles that Nelvari's translator couldn't process. After a moment, Spike turned and moved down the corridor, positioning itself ahead of them like an escort. "What did you say to it?" "I asked for help," Morgan resumed walking. "We'll need it." As they proceeded deeper into the anomaly wing, they encountered more escaped entities, each potentially lethal, yet each responding to Morgan's presence with unexpected docility. The phase shifter, capable of transitioning through solid matter, hovered alongside them. The hive mind fungal colony, previously hostile to all approach, pulsed in rhythmic patterns that Morgan somehow interpreted as communication. Even the quantum-locked predator, which could only move when unobserved, remained still in Morgan's direct gaze, allowing them safe passage. They recognize you, Nelvari realized. But how? You've been contained since before most of them arrived. They recognize what I am, Morgan corrected, just as the facility does. Their progress was halted by the appearance of Security Chief Razi, a veteran Quantalian with a prosthetic left arm, replacement for a limb lost to an anomaly years earlier. Specialist Nelvari, Razi called, weapon raised. Step away from the human and the anomalies. Chief Razi, the containment failure is deliberate sabotage, Nelvari explained quickly. Morgan is helping contain the situation. Razi's weapon didn't waver. Specialist Tavel has evidence that you've been compromised by mimetic influence from the human. Director Carrix has ordered both of you secured and the human transferred to central containment. Tavel? Morgan's expression darkened. Of course. He's been accessing my personal storage compartment. Chief Razi. Tavel is responsible for this breach. He's activated Emergency Protocol Omega, using a device he took from my quarters. Razi hesitated, then lowered his weapon slightly. That's a serious accusation. Which can be verified at the control hub, Morgan replied. But we need to move quickly before more containment fields fail. After a tense moment, Razi nodded. I'll escort you, but at the first sign of deception. You'll do what you must, Morgan agreed. As will I. The group, human facility staff, and docile anomalies, made their way toward the central control hub. As they approached, the facility's architecture began to change subtly. The corridors widened, the lighting shifted to a warmer spectrum, and embedded patterns in the walls became more pronounced. We're entering the original section, Morgan explained. This part of the facility predates Alliance occupation by thousands of years. They reached a massive doorway, unlike any other in the facility, seamless, with a subtle luminescence that shifted in response to their proximity. This is it, Morgan said, placing a palm against the door's surface. The material beneath Morgan's hand glowed brighter, spreading outward in concentric circles. With a sound like a deep inhalation, the doorway dissolved, revealing a vast circular chamber beyond. At its center stood Tavel, the Mariaxian specialist, manipulating controls on a console that appeared to have risen from the floor. Behind him, holographic displays filled the air with rapidly scrolling data. Stop! Razi called, raising his weapon. Tavel turned, his neural tendrils flaring with agitation. Too late. I've locked the emergency protocol. All anomalies will be released, and this facility will self-destruct in 30 minutes. Why? Nelvari demanded. Because the Mariaxian Consortium deserves this technology, not the Alliance. Tavel's voice rose in pitch. Do you understand what we've discovered? Humans aren't just another species. They're the elder species. Their genetic technology, their spacefaring capabilities, all of it should belong to us. Morgan stepped forward calmly. Tavel, you don't understand what you're doing. This facility contains safeguards you can't imagine. Stay back, Tavel raised a weapon. Not standard Alliance issue, but something sleeker, clearly of human design. I studied the artifacts we recovered from your storage. I know how to operate human technology now. Razi moved with the speed of his predatory ancestors, placing himself between Tavel and Morgan. The energy discharge from Tavel's weapon struck the security chief's prosthetic arm, which absorbed the blast but shorted out, hanging useless at his side. Enough! Morgan's voice echoed throughout the chamber with unexpected authority. The human strode forward, and to everyone's shock, the floor beneath Morgan's feet illuminated with each step. Director Carrix, I need your authorization. Carrix, who had entered the chamber during the confrontation, hesitated only briefly. What kind of authorization? Administrator access, Morgan replied. I can reset the emergency protocols, but only with hierarchical override. Carrix studied Morgan's expression, then nodded. By my authority as facility director, I grant temporary administrator access to this human for emergency protocol resolution. The moment the words were spoken, the entire chamber transformed. Additional consoles rose from the floor. The holographic displays multiplied and reorganized, and the ceiling opened to reveal a vast dome of stars, a real-time view of the space surrounding the planet. Morgan moved to the central console, hands moving with blinding speed across interfaces that responded like living extensions of the human's will. Initiating Emergency Containment Protocol 7. Throughout the facility, the escaped anomalies suddenly froze in place, then began moving, not in chaotic escape patterns, but in orderly processions back toward their containment areas. The facility itself seemed to come alive, automated systems activating to repair damaged sections and restore failed containment fields. "Impossible," Tavel whispered, his weapon forgotten at his side. "Not impossible," Morgan replied, without looking up from the console. "Just beyond your current understanding. Chief Razi, please secure Specialist Tavel. He'll need to answer to Alliance authorities for sabotage and attempted murder." As Razi apprehended the stunned Mariaxian, Morgan continued working at the console. "Director Carrix, I'm restoring standard containment protocols, but I recommend a full facility diagnostic. Tavel's actions have triggered several dormant systems that will need recalibration." "And what exactly are these dormant systems?" Carrix asked, approaching the central console cautiously. Morgan looked up, expression serious. "That's a longer conversation, one we should have after the immediate crisis is resolved." Hours later, with the facility secured and Tavel in custody awaiting transfer to Alliance headquarters, Morgan led Nelvari and Director Carrix deep beneath the known levels of Epsilon 9. They traversed maintenance tunnels that had never appeared on Alliance schematics, eventually reaching a massive sealed doorway, emblazoned with unfamiliar symbols. "This is it," Morgan said softly. "The archives." "What archives?" Nelvari asked. "The complete historical record of humanity." Morgan placed a hand against the door. "And the truth about who and what I am." The door recognized Morgan's genetic signature, illuminating from within. It slid open with surprising silence, revealing a vast chamber beyond, larger than seemed physically possible given the facility's known dimensions. As they stepped inside, the chamber awakened. Soft lighting revealed thousands of storage units lining the walls, and at the center, a pedestal that glowed with internal light. "Welcome, Administrator Morgan," announced a voice from nowhere and everywhere. "It has been 12,183 years since your last access." A holographic figure materialized beside the pedestal, humanoid, but clearly artificial, its form transparent yet detailed. "I am Historical Archivist Viz 23. How may I assist you?" Morgan approached the hologram. "VI 23. These are representatives of the current governing body of this region. They need to understand the Elder Project." The hologram nodded. "Of course, Administrator. Shall I begin with Phase 1 or proceed directly to current status?" "Start at the beginning," Morgan replied. "They need to understand everything." VI-23's form shifted, expanding to create a three-dimensional representation of a spiral galaxy. Approximately 50,000 years ago by your current calendar, humanity reached its technological apex. The expansion era had connected thousands of worlds across multiple spiral arms, and human civilization flourished through peaceful exploration and scientific advancement. The display zoomed in to show various star systems, each illuminated with symbols indicating human habitation. However, long-range predictive models indicated a coming instability in the fabric of space-time, a natural phenomenon that would make faster-than-light travel impossible for approximately 10,000 years, effectively isolating every human settlement from all others. The holographic display changed to show gravitational waves disrupting the connective paths between star systems. rather than allow human civilization to fragment into isolated pockets that might regress or war with one another upon eventual reconnection. The Council of Earth initiated the Elder Project, a three-phase plan to preserve human knowledge and ensure peaceful reintegration once the space-time disturbance passed. The display shifted again, showing genetic sequences. Phase Y involved the genetic seeding of promising worlds with human DNA templates, designed to guide the natural evolution of indigenous species toward sapience patterns compatible with human cognitive structures. This would ensure that when contact was eventually re-established, communication and cooperation would be possible despite divergent evolutionary paths. Nelvari's four eyes widened in understanding. The identical genetic markers? Yes, VI-23 confirmed. All currently spacefaring species in this galaxy carry human-originated cognitive templates in their DNA. You are, in a very real sense, humanity's children, though your physical forms evolved naturally according to your planetary environments. Director Carrick's neural pulses accelerated visibly. And Phase 2? Phase 2 established observation outposts, facilities like Epsilon 9, designed to monitor evolutionary progress, preserve human knowledge, and eventually serve as reconnection points when the space-time disturbance subsided. And Phase 3? Morgan asked quietly. The hologram's expression became solemn. Phase 3 was intended to be the reintegration process, led by human administrators, preserved through extended stasis. However, the hologram paused. Complications arose. What complications? Nelvari pressed. Civil conflict, VA-23 replied. A faction of humanity opposed the Elder Project, believing it unethical to influence the evolution of other species. The resulting war damaged many observation outposts and destroyed most of the stasis chambers containing administrators. The hologram turned to Morgan. Administrator Morgan, you are the only surviving original human in this sector of the galaxy. Your genetic signature matches baseline human template, with 99.7% conformity. You are, by protocol, authorized to initiate Phase 3 reconnection at your discretion. A profound silence fell over the chamber as the implications sank in. Morgan stood motionless, absorbing this confirmation of what had long been suspected. So, Carrick said finally, you are not merely a human, but one of the original humans, preserved for tens of thousands of years? Yes, Morgan answered softly. Though my memories of the time before stasis are fragmented. The process wasn't perfect. And now you have the authority to implement this Phase 3? Nelvari asked. What exactly does that entail? Morgan turned to VI-23. Display Phase 3 protocols. The hologram expanded once more, showing a complex series of technological activations across the galaxy. Phase 3 involves reactivating dormant human technology throughout the seeded regions, establishing a new human presence, and implementing governance protocols as designed by the original Council of Earth. VI-23's tone remained neutral. As sole surviving administrator, Morgan has unilateral authority to initiate this process. Nelvari and Carrick exchanged alarmed glances. That would effectively give you control over the entire alliance, Carrick said carefully. Morgan smiled, a genuine expression that reached the human's eyes. Yes, which is precisely why I won't be doing that. Morgan turned to face them fully. The Elder Project was designed with noble intentions, but it was also created from a perspective of human exceptionalism that I no longer share. The galaxy has evolved beautifully without direct human guidance. The various species have developed their own cultures, their own technologies, their own ways of understanding the universe. Morgan gestured toward the vast archive surrounding them. Instead, I propose something different. This knowledge, the complete historical and technological record of human civilization, should be shared openly with the Alliance, not as a blueprint to follow, but as a resource to learn from, both our triumphs and our catastrophic mistakes. You would surrender this power? Carrick asked, clearly stunned. I would transform it, Morgan corrected. From control to collaboration, Epsilon 9 was designed as an observation post, but it could become something far more valuable, an interspecies research center where the past informs the future without dictating it. Nelvari found herself oddly moved by the human's words. The Alliance Council will need to approve such a fundamental change in the facility's purpose. Of course, Morgan agreed, and they should send their best scientific and diplomatic representatives. There's much to discuss. Director Carrick's neural pulses had slowed to a contemplative rhythm. I will support this proposal. The knowledge contained here is too valuable and too dangerous to be controlled by any single authority, even its original creators. Then it's settled, Morgan said with visible relief. The era of containment is over. The era of collaboration begins. 3 months later. Nelvari stood at the entrance to what had once been Containment Unit 34H, but was now Morgan's official residence and office within the renamed Epsilon 9 Interspecies Research Center. The door stood open, a symbolic gesture that had become standard throughout the transformed facility. Enter, Morgan called, recognizing her footsteps. She found the human surrounded by holographic displays, showing various research projects currently underway. Teams of scientists from dozens of Alliance species now worked alongside VI-23 and other reactivated archival systems, carefully studying and adapting ancient human technologies for modern application. Chief Security Officer Nelvari, Morgan greeted her with a warm smile. How goes the integration of the new defense systems? Smoothly, she replied, still adjusting to her recent promotion. Though some of the Alliance military representatives remain concerned about potential vulnerabilities. Understandable, Morgan acknowledged. Trust takes time to build. Nelvari gestured toward a display showing Spike, the once feared Draconis Vorax, now peacefully coexisting with researchers in a specially designed habitat. Speaking of trust, your communication protocols with the former anomalies have been remarkably successful. They were never truly anomalies, Morgan corrected gently. Just misunderstood, much like humans were. Nelvari hesitated, then asked the question that had been troubling her since the archive's revelation. Do you ever regret not activating Phase 3? You could have restored human civilization as it was. Morgan's expression turned contemplative. Human civilization as it was no longer exists. Nelvari. Even if I could somehow resurrect it exactly as planned, it wouldn't be the same. Too much time has passed. The galaxy has moved on. The human smiled again. Besides, humanity never truly disappeared. What do you mean? Morgan gestured toward the facility around them. Look at the Alliance. Dozens of species working together. Exploring, building, creating. The best aspects of humanity live on in all of you. The genetic templates may have originated with us, but what you've all become is entirely your own achievement. Nelvari felt her scales flush with unexpected emotion. And yet, you remain alone, the last of your kind. Not alone, Morgan corrected. Different, yes. Last of my original form, perhaps, but not alone. The human's gaze turned toward the stars, visible through the chamber's viewing portal. And perhaps not forever. There are other sectors, other outposts. The Elder Project was vast. Somewhere out there, other administrators may have survived. Will you search for them? Eventually. Morgan turned back to the research displays. But for now, there's work to do here. A bridge to build between what humanity was and what the galaxy has become. Later that evening, Nelvari recorded in her personal log. Cycle 512 since the transformation of Epsilon 9. The Interspecies Research Center continues to expand as more Alliance representatives arrive to study the human archives. Director Carrix has authorized the exploration of additional sealed sections, revealing technological marvels beyond our previous understanding. The human, Morgan, remains an enigma in many ways, both ancient and contemporary, both familiar and alien. The last survivor of the species that, it seems, gave birth to us all through their genetic legacy. The Alliance Council remains divided on how to proceed with the knowledge we've uncovered. Some fear the implications of human technological superiority. Others see only opportunity. But Morgan's patient diplomacy has won over even the most suspicious counselors. As for myself, I find my perspective transformed. The boundaries between us and them, between now and then, seem increasingly arbitrary. We are all, in some sense, children of the stars, shaped by forces beyond our complete understanding. Humanity hasn't vanished. It has evolved into us, into our civilizations, into our shared future. And I, Quintar Nelvari, once a simple containment specialist, now stand at the threshold between past and future, helping to build a bridge across the vastness of time. The elder species has returned, or perhaps they never truly left.